Welcome, everybody, to the Booked Solid podcast, the place for anyone with clients. We have a great guest for you today. He is the host of the Dogs of War podcast and the owner of Oracle Canine Training, Stephen Hueston. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Third time's a charm. We had some technical stuff, but glad to be here, and thank you for your time. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah. So if you could start by telling me a little bit about your background in the military and how you first started to fall in love with dogs.
Yeah. So my grandfather was a narcotics detective, and he was kind of into dogs and Harleys and a lot of things. But I was kind of raised by him from, a little bit, not so super early on, but a little bit later, as an adolescent. And he had a breeding program for American Pit Bull Terriers, game dogs. So I had a really hands-on approach early on with some challenging dogs. Luckily, they weren't human aggressive, but definitely animal aggressive. And I learned, real quick how to break up dog fights, but how to build trust, confidence, and a solid relationship with dogs, especially challenging dogs. And then fast forward, I joined the Marines in 2006. I was an infantry rifleman, and I did a couple, 2-3 deployments. And I kind of got the bug when I saw working dogs overseas, dogs that would bite, that could detect explosives and track people over soft surfaces onto asphalt, into the dirt. They could just follow your footsteps an hour after you had been through there, and kind of got the bug from there. And then I got out in 2010 and I joined a Hueston club, which in America it's called IGP. It's a German sport. There's 3 phases. There's bite work, her protection, tracking, and obedience. And I was a decoy there for a couple years. A decoy simply means the guy who puts the sleeve on his arm and takes the bites from the dogs. But I learned how to teach the tracking and the obedience portion of that. And then moved down to Colorado, joined another Hueston club. And during the pandemic, we all faced some challenges, and I was like, you know what? The place where I live has a lot of dogs, and most of them are out of control, and I'm good with dogs. So I said, you know what? Let's throw the hat in the ring and see if we can help these people, work with their dogs and earn a living doing it. It took me 34 years, but I finally found my passion.
That's fantastic. So these military working dogs, the ones who could sniff explosives or are trained to, I guess, be warriors, attack people or the right people, like what kind of training do they go through? They're not like pets at all. They're a totally different thing. You just talk about some of these dogs that you worked alongside with?
Yes. So these dogs are specifically bred and selectively bred for aggression, biting, deep, full grips. So when a dog bites a tug, you don't want them to bite with their canine. You want them to bite all the way in the back, right? So if you get properly bred dogs, they just do that naturally. They like to fight. They're dominant, pushy animals. So if you have the right dogs, most of them are Belgian Malinois, which is what I own. And some German Shepherds, make the mix, but they're bigger. They have hip issues, elbow issues. And their Malinois are smaller. They can outperform them on almost any level, and they're smaller, so they're easier to feed. So, for instance, if you get a dog that's young at 8 weeks old, you start developing proper biting mechanics and assessing the prey drive. Prey drive is when a dog wants to chase something that's moving. Just for a real quick run through, I would put a leash on a dog, back tie them so that they couldn't, come off of like a post or something. You stand in front of them with like a flirt pole, which kind of resembles a fishing pole, and it's got like a dangly end on it. You can tie a sock to it, and then we would flip it around on the ground. The dog's chasing it, and then he bites it. And, there's a lot that goes into this, but we teach them to bite it far in the back of their mouth. And then basically you progress from a sock on a flirt pole to a little tug, to a bite wedge, to a bite sleeve, to a bicep sleeve, and then onto a full bite suit. So a bite suit is, jacket, you slip it on, buckle it, and basically the only thing exposed is your hands. Some people get them longer than their hands, but I like to be able to grab the dog's collar, use my hands, and pants. And basically you can take a bite from a really serious dog and you might get bruised up, but it's not going to puncture or cause any lacerations to the skin. So that's on the protection side. Most military dogs are trained on explosives. So they start detection training at a really young age. There's a couple different ways to go about that. The European method, basically, you start the dog when they're 8 weeks to 12, 14, 15, 16 weeks for imprinting. And basically you put the odor under like a tube that's specifically designed, and then they stick their face in it and you feed them over that odor. And they start remembering that, and then you start hiding it, and then, it kind of goes on from there. But there's a lot that goes into it.
Wow. This isn't part of your work, though, correct? Military dogs, or it is?
Not so much military dogs, but I do work with police dogs.
Police dogs.
The end of the month. So same thing, except they're not trained on explosives. Typically, it's drugs. Some police dogs are on explosives, but the bite work, the tracking, which means, I say, hey, Hansa, you start right here, walk as far as you want to walk through those woods, across asphalt, whatever. And then you say, all right, I'm, half a mile away. I get my dog out, tell him sook or whatever the word is, where you started, and he follows your track to where you are. It's pretty cool.
Wow. So once you've trained a dog to do, back of the mouth bite training, it seems like it's a very dangerous animal at that point. How do you have total confidence in your training that it only bites, the people you want it to?
Well, before you teach a dog to bite, they already know how to bite, right? Dogs bite, bark, growl. That's it. So before you teach a dog protection work, actual protection work, not the sports stuff where they need to see a sleeve or a piece of gear and they bite it. Those dogs are just biting that piece of gear. They're not biting and fighting the man that's wearing it, right? If you didn't have that piece of gear on, that dog would not bite you. Real world protection, police, that's a little different, but you always have complete obedience trained into the dog before that starts to happen. Like playing tug, playing the rag, biting the wedge, that kind of stuff is all a game to the dog. Those items that you're using for the dog to bite, they're prey objects. It's all movement, like the dog's having fun, right? When the dog is mature and can handle pressure and for a real life situation, police dogs, protection dogs, military dogs, and they have obedience, that's when you switch from working the dog in prey drive to working the dog in defensive drive. You actually make the dog fear for their safety slowly and meticulously, and you teach them to fight through that pressure. So most of the dogs that you see, they're just biting whatever object. It's just like chasing a tennis ball and biting it. But by the time they're ready to do real man work, is what we call it, like fighting you, looking at you, doing that, they've got plenty of obedience, and it's on a cue at that point. You say whatever the word is, and the dog executes.
It's wild how many different niches there are in the dog training world.
Yes, absolutely. And my dog, like I said, he's trained in protection. He's trained. He'll bite you for real, but he's not out of control. I can take him into Home Depot. I can take him to the mall. I can take him to wherever. What good is a protection dog or a police dog if you can't take him in the public and be around people? That's completely wasted. And my dog's not on explosives or drugs because I'll never use that in real life. So
right.
I'm in the process of training him on bed bug odor detection because I can actually make money with that. That's a real bed bugs are a big problem here in Colorado.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense. Dogs can smell everything, but I hadn't heard of that use case before. How much can a bed bug sniffing trained dog make?
Oh, I've got buddies on the East Coast. Like, say they lived in Maine, they'd probably charge anywhere from $20 to $30 a room in a hotel, and they can go in and out of a room in 2 minutes, as opposed to a human having to go in there and peel all the covers back, flip mattresses over, look at the outlets, look at the carpet. Like dogs can smell 10,000, and depending on who you ask and breed based, it's like a bloodhound, right? To 100,000 times better than us. So
yeah.
And I live in a resort community, so we're kind of by Vail and Beaver Creek ski areas, and there's a lot of hotels and a lot of Airbnbs and short-term rentals. And nobody wants to see the Terminix truck parked in front of those. They want to, hey, I come in with a backpack and a ski bag and I got my Malinois. Yeah, we'll do it. Nobody knows.
That's a fantastic business idea. Like so many great niches. So you got back from the military and working with these, amazingly well trained dogs. And tell me about how you founded Oracle Canine Training.
So not to get into politics or anything, but the God's honest answer. I work for the town here where I live, government municipality job. I had been there for 4 years, didn't plan on going anywhere, had a nice retirement and benefits. And during COVID, probably September, October, November timeframe, I don't remember, in 2020, our town manager decided to mandate the vaccine on his own and gave us 10 days notice, and he let us know via email. And then he went on vacation for 10 days. And, I had already had COVID and I had a bad experience in the military with vaccines. And I'm a healthy guy and I didn't want to take it. I'm like, you know what? I don't take a flu vaccine. I didn't want to do it. And so I got fired. And I found myself struggling mentally because my family's like, you got to have a 9 to 5. And, I was mentally down for a while. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. There's 2 other dog trainers, and I say that loosely, here in our county. And I started then, and I'll never look back. I'll never work for somebody else again.
Yeah, I value that independence. So, you had a health issue, made it so you couldn't do a vaccine. You decided to go out on your own. Tell me about your first couple months in business.
So it started, it was hit or miss. Maybe I'd have an appointment or two. Maybe I wouldn't. The local pet store here in town, I don't want to call them holistic, but they're a super high-end pet store. They sell any variety of frozen raw diets, the highest quality kibble, CBD, medicinal mushroom supplements, yada, yada, yada. And I'm really close with them, and I put some business cards in there, and it kind of started to pick up. I was down on myself. I didn't have an app to do any scheduling or take payments or anything like that. And, I just was kind of day by day, week by week. And then it got to the point where I was like, you know what, this is actually working. I'm actually making a little bit of money. I need to get an app and a scheduler and a way to take payments from people and the way to keep this all kind of, by the book and have records for taxes and yada, yada, yada. And that's when I found PocketSuite. And, it's been just growing and expanding since then.
Yeah, that's great to hear that as you started to take off, you find PocketSuite, helps you stay organized, grow. Tell me more about how you get new clients. Where's your best source of leads?
So this is a really small valley, right? We live at 8,000 feet in the mountains. A lot of
Sounds
work.
Beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, you got the billionaires of the world here, the millionaires, and then you got us. And then the 2 ski resorts, one's that way 10 minutes, one's that way 10 minutes. And it's a very big word of mouth community. I was recommended PocketSuite by a friend from Kentucky who's a retired police officer, canine handler, has a very successful pet business. He's like, dude, this is what I use. It was made for dog trainers. Like, just do it. And I started doing that. And then I started sharing links from my PocketSuite on my social media, my podcast channels. I've already got a pretty big following and a base. And I've got business cards in all the vets offices here, all the pet stores. And honestly, like, I'm good at what I do. And people, they see that and they see value in it, and they kind of share it. So we're good. And that's just kind of how I do it now. Very, very recently, I've put money into the paper. I have an ad in the paper, and the local TV station, TV8 Vail, had me on. They invited me on because I was going and standing in the park here holding free dog training sign and like filming these videos, and people would come up to me, and the news station was like, oh, hey, we'd love to have you on. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm going to be pumping money into YouTube, Google ads coming up, but it's a slow, small, steady growth cycle. I don't want to get too big too fast. And that's just kind of where I'm at right now.
Do you stick with dogs in the valley where you live, or do you take remote cases as well and teach over or train over Zoom?
So I am offering that, and that's one of my packages that I have through the app, PocketSuite. I haven't done any of that yet, but I haven't also put any emphasis on kind of advertising that. But I know it is a thing, and I've got clients here that spend their winter here, and then they go summer elsewhere. And, obviously we're in the beginning of March. It's 40 degrees out today. It's hot and snow's melting, but we're expecting 24 to 36 inches of snow from now until Saturday or Sunday. So
wow,
summer's not here yet. And when they go home for the summer, I've got people that have already booked packages with me to do remote lessons. I've done one to date. So I will say I'm not the greatest on that, but it's not that hard. I know dogs, I know people, I know how to communicate. So I don't think it will be a challenge, but that's definitely something I'm going to be adding to my repertoire.
Yeah. And so you've got the podcast, getting out the word that way, because it's actually really big and a lot of different. Can you talk a little bit about the podcast actually?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 years ago, September was 2 years. So September, 2.5 years now. I got tired of burying my buddies from suicide and drug overdoses, to be honest with you. Like up to this point, we've lost more from that than we had overseas. And I'm not a wealthy person, so I can't give people money to help. I didn't know how to help, but I was tired of getting I'm not going to cuss, it's your podcast, but I was tired of getting the phone call in the middle of the night or the next morning. And I started Dogs of War mainly for the first season to have other, war veterans on, tell their stories, how they healed, the traumas that they went through, in order for somebody listening to say, you know what, I'm going through that right now. I'm going to try that. And as I morphed into a professional dog trainer and doing that full time, I kind of broadened the horizons, and I've had a lot of very high-end professional canine people on, canine handlers, canine trainers, civilian, military, police. So it's kind of a mismatch of that. And we were in 70, 80 countries last time I checked, almost 2,000 cities. We were in the top 25 of all Buzzsprout hosted podcasts last year. I got the little emblem in my email, and I was like, oh, that's not a big deal. And then I Googled it. How many Buzzsprout podcasts are there? And there was like 150,000. And I couldn't believe it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's a great topic. It's a timely one. I've actually heard that working with dogs can be very grounding, good for your mental health, all those things. So it makes sense that, people who need that right now are connecting with that message and that community.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do see a lot of veterans that are working with dogs, like I was just having this conversation with somebody else the other day. If you took two of the same trainers, so if you took two of me, right, and there was two of us, and we had two of the same dog, and one of us trained the dog talking to it, and the other one trained the dog completely silent, the silent one would get trained 50% faster, right? Dogs are animals, man. They don't lie. They don't, BS anybody. What you see is what you get. Your energy goes into the dog. And it's just kind of a really grounding experience when, like, you have this sentient being next to you that could totally hurt you if they wanted to. And you build a relationship of trust and love. And, the other side of that is helping people. Like a lot of my clients live in misery because they've allowed their dogs to create all these bad habits. They can't take it for walks because it drags them around. They get reactive to all these things. And then when I step in and I'm able to help these people, it makes me feel a purpose again, because I lost that purpose when I got out of the military, as do most people when they get out of the military. And for me, it was kind of a path to healing, to be honest.
Wow. That's really beautiful. What is your advice for someone coming out of the military and looking for something, maybe dog training, maybe something like it, of like the kind of things that, both that experience helps, but also kind of will help that person back,
Yeah, absolutely. So when I got out in 2010, and I've had guys on that are getting out right now. It's completely different now than when I got out. When I got out, you had to go to a week-long death by PowerPoint class. Don't beat your wife. Here's grilling safety. Don't catch yourself on fire. Here's how you half-ass write a resume. Now they have all these different clinics, TBI clinics, blah, 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 help. So my advice would be, I didn't go to the traditional route. I went to normal university for my bachelor's degree and I hated it. But I found mentors, right? Some of them were veterans, some of them weren't, but they were dog trainers. And I worked underneath them. And that partnership, that brotherhood of showing up and seeing them and them being in my life and helping me, helped me more than going and paying $50,000 to go to a 5-week, 6-week, 10-week class in North Carolina or whatever. Hey, no, I'm not crapping on that. If that's the route people want to go, great. But what helped me, and a lot of people that come out of the military are very similar to me, find a mentor, put your time in, offer, hey, I'll put the bite suit on, right? Like I got that hole in my tattoo there. It was my first time in a bite suit. This 110-pound German Shepherd absolutely mauled me, but they respected it and I didn't quit. And I kept going and I learned more than I ever could have in a school because I did it for years. And finding a mentor, somebody that'll hold you accountable, somebody that you have to show up for, keep a schedule with, and it doesn't cost you anything other than blood, sweat, and tears is kind of how I did it. I'm not a formally trained guy. Hey, hats off if people have done that and made it work for them. But what worked for me was the mentor route.
Yeah, I mean, get connected. Find people you really like, how they make money, get in with what they do. You'll get great tips like bed bug dogs. You can make $30 a room in 2 minutes.
There you go.
That's a great tip when you have the skills to do that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. And I would say also what I'm hearing from your story is just like, even if you don't know how it's going to turn into a career or money right away, that, starting that podcast, talking about things you're really passionate about, you never know where that's going to go.
Yeah, it's very important to find what you like to do and how you can help others, because helping others helps your soul, in my opinion. And through the loss and the hardships that I've been through, helping other people makes me feel the best. And the way that I could do that was starting the podcast. Yeah, it cost me money, cost me hundreds of dollars a month, whatever. I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people, but I also bounced around from job to job to job. And my family, they're very 9-to-5 oriented. Nobody has money, anything like that. And they kind of made me feel bad for that. And I'm like, guys, look, I'm trying different. They're like, you haven't stuck with anything for blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm trying different things. And I didn't realize that at the time. I just felt beat up and sad from it. And now that I've started my own business and I'm making more money than they're making, not to be that kind of a guy, but seeing the successes of it. I was 35 before 34, 30, before I found my passion and finding what you like to do. The old quote, the cliche quote is true. Do what you love and you won't work a day in your life, right? If I wake up and I have 6 lessons to do in a day, I'm like, let's get it. And, finding that is such clarity in life. And, I can't recommend it enough.
What are your favorite kinds of cases to work with in the Valley? Like just a regular dog owner needs help.
Aggression.
You said aggression?
Yes. Anybody can teach a dog to walk on a loose leash. Anybody can teach a dog to sit and to down and to come to you when they call. Most trainers won't take on dogs with a bite history or aggression. I teach dogs to bite me. I call me a masochist or whatever, but I love putting the bite suit on and getting my ass beat by a dog. That thrills me. So I'll just give you a quick brief story. I had a client from Glenwood Springs, which is 55-hour drive. with perfect weather, no traffic, through a canyon, which gets commonly closed from semis wrecking in the snow or mudslides. And she told me she has a 2-year-old German Shepherd. It's bit 2 people. If it does it on paper, if it does it again, they're going to kill it. She's like, I can't take this dog anywhere. I can't even let it out of my room because of my roommate. It's sequestered. And I said, listen, I want to help you. She had contacted 4 or 5 other people. They wouldn't take her on. I said, but I'm not going to drive to Glenwood to train with you for an hour for any amount of money. But if you want to come to me, I'll meet you at Home Depot, whatever. So we did our first lesson. We met at Home Depot. I said, put the dog in the car. You and I talk, and then we'll get the dog out. Well, she was already out of the car with the dog as I was pulling in. German Shepherd, nice looking dog, 2 years old, had a gentle leader, the leash that wraps around their nose, or the collar, or whatever you want to call it, attached to a leash. I walked up to her. I was definitely further than arm's length away, and the dog bit me in the hip. She starts panicking. What do I do? What do I do? She's shaking the leash, making it worse. You know, her energy's going down that leash into the dog, and it does it again. It bites me in the hip again. Luckily, I'm wearing layers. I got jeans on. I had a big puffy jacket on and a belt in my treat pouch, so it didn't hurt me, and it couldn't open its mouth all the way because of the gentle leader. I said, give me the leash. I grabbed the leash. The dog tried to come up the leash and bite me. I hung it. You know, we had a come to Jesus moment, right? His front feet were off the ground for a second. He started squealing. I set him down. I stood my ground. I wasn't, staring at him, trying to intimidate him or anything. I was just like, hey, that doesn't work with me. It doesn't scare me. I'm not leaving. And when he calmed, I gave him some treats. And literally within 3 to 4 minutes, I felt comfortable enough to reach down and put a training collar on this dog myself, take the gentle leader off. And I had him in Home Depot, healing around people, cashiers, forklifts, whatever. This girl was crying. She couldn't believe it. And that is the most fulfilling to me because these dogs are on death row. Nobody else will work with them. And for me, that's where I get the most fulfillment.
And how do you train an owner to do that too, though? Because they have to, right? In order for it to stick.
Absolutely. So that particular dog had never been told no. You can't do that. And it had learned. So she got it when it was a year and some months old, and it had a broken back. It had never been outside. It was soiling itself. It had never been exposed to the public and to other people and other dogs. And it had learned, if I'm uncomfortable with you coming into my space, all I got to do is bark, growl, and try and bite you, and you go away, right? But me stepping in and saying, dude, you can't do that. Nope. Changed the course of that dog's life. And then I had her, that was the very first introduction. We did an hour lesson at Home Depot. First 20 minutes, I walked it around Home Depot, gave it some corrections, some gentle leash pressure, reinforcing with food. And then I handed the leash over to her. And, when we walk by people, if the dog veered off course and went towards somebody, I would say, correct that, pull back on the leash right now. She would pull back on the leash, and then I said, treat him, pay him. She would give him a piece of food, right? You can't just yank on the leash and collar and expect the dog to learn, or, that's just beating the dog up. You have to positively reinforce by adding something of value, whether that's a food, a treat, soothing tone, or petting the dog to teach them, or else we're just beating them up and abusing them. So 99.7% of dog training is training the owner. Most people make mistakes because they let dogs do things which are self-satisfying, or they shut off fear by driving people or things or whatever away from them by barking, biting, growling, jumping, etc. You have to correct the dog immediately and set boundaries and positively reinforce the dog, right? Dogs that know what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do have such a good life. They don't walk around on eggshells. Am I going to get lit up? Am I going to get yelled at? Am I going to this, that, the other? And it's such a important piece, right? If people just corrected dogs in whatever manner and reinforced them for good behaviors, I'd be out of the job.
Well, I'm glad you get to work with dogs like that. That's a great story.
Absolutely.
So as you continue to grow your business, you maybe going to go through hotels and stuff like that. But what are other areas you're thinking about growing into as a dog trainer?
So my goals for this year are to graduate to a board and train program, because I find problems when I do private lessons with people that they don't put in the homework, they don't do what I tell them to do, and then my name's attached to them. Oh, your dog just bit this person. Well, I got a dog trainer, Steve, right? So doing a board and train, whether it's 2, 4, 5, 6 weeks long, the dog is with me in my control 100% of the time. And I can train the dog, and realistically, I don't really want to do anything under than 4, 5, 6 weeks. And during that time, the dog's with me 100%. I can socialize it. I can do environmental training. I can, do obedience, behavior modification, etc. So that's one of my goals for this year.
Wow. How many, so you'll have like a kennel, yeah? With a certain number of beds for dogs?
So right now I just have my 3-level townhome, and I have kennels, I have crates, and I can do 3, 4, 5 dogs at a time safely, keep them separated. But another goal for this summer, which is in the works as we speak, is to secure a brick and mortar training facility. So a place that's outside of my home where I can build it out, rubber floors, crates, kennels, runs, put my slat mill in for exercise, and do all of my private lessons there, as well as in homes, because that's important. I can do group obedience classes, puppy classes, day trips, etc. But that's all kind of in the works. We're looking at
that's huge.
Yeah, we're looking at facilities now. So,
are you thinking of hiring people, training them to do what you do in order to keep that storefront full?
Yes. I'm not quite to that point yet, but that's a goal for this summer, this fall. I don't know if I'm going to necessarily hire people. I'm probably going to do an internship model, with a non-compete. This is a very small valley, etc. But young kids, high schoolers, maybe college kids that want some, life skill. Hey, come on, I'll bring you on. I'll work for you. I'll pay for your meals. I'll teach you how to train dogs, and kind of go that route. I'm not to the point yet where I have the, secondary income to pay people to do that for me. But these are all, you're kind of reading my mind here, but these are all my goals that I have written on my whiteboard over there for this year.
Cool. Yeah. Mentor the next generation.
That's right.
Give back what people gave to you.
Yes, sir.
So, coming in, having big plans that seem reachable for you, what is like the one big piece of advice for someone starting out, maybe someone from the military again, since I think you understand that person, just like stick with it. What do you say to that person?
So I would say, make your mind up. If you enjoy working with dogs, go for it. Jump in with both feet. Dedicate yourself. Either go to a formal training kind of route, or get the mentor route and the seminars, etc., like I do. The reason that I train my Malinois to do bite work and detection and tracking is so that I can drive to new police departments and say, hey, I got a suit. I'm a trainer. I got licensing. I've got insurance. Here's my info. Here's my dog. Let me show you what he can do. And, don't be afraid to put your foot out there, right? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So, get out, get your stuff in order. When your feet are on the ground, find those mentors, find a local club, local trainer, volunteer, give your time away. I held a sign in the park, free dog training. People would come over to me with their dogs, dragging them up to me. Hey, what do you mean free dog training? And I'm like, great. Hey, let me have the leash. Let me show you a couple things. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and do things for people for free, because if you get good at dog training, the clients will come, right? And I can't stress enough to have some backing. Like my app PocketSuite, which I'm assuming you created, is great. It syncs with my Google Calendar. I can take all my deposits through that. I send all of my paperwork, my waivers, my general intake forms, etc. I can take my payments through that, and having that all on paper and a record for tax time and the income that you make, it's huge. I can't recommend that enough.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, I mean, the engineers we have at PocketSuite did a great job, I think.
Oh, you guys rock.
I will pass that on. Yeah, so Dogs of War podcast, check that out. I think it's great. Lots of amazing stories of amazing dogs and vets and, police, doing kind of amazing things with animals and, working at a really high level together. Also, I'll have the link to Oracle Canine Training in the show notes as well. If you're in Colorado, you might want to check that out. Or if, you want to do some training on Zoom, that is also a possibility there. Thanks so much for joining us today, Stephen.
I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate your time. And, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. I don't know where those came from, but yeah, thank you. Thank you for what you do. And I wouldn't be on your podcast right now if I don't believe in what you guys stand for in your app. It's super high quality. Anybody looking for any kind of an app for scheduling, if you have clients, paperwork, deposits, payments, etc., grab PocketSuite, man. Give these people your business, and you won't be let down.
Thank you so much, Stephen.
You're welcome, brother.